also been an event at the St. Alban's Cathedral in Francis Baard Street in Pretoria. So let's go now to our senior reporter there, Aviwe Mtila. Aviwe, are you with us? Can you tell us more about the Pretoria Memorial Service?
Well, Sally, proceedings here wrapped up at about 45 minutes ago, and while there's no one that's perfect, it was clear the picture that was painted of the late Archbishop was one that was near perfection. I mean, he had an unwavering determination to fight injustices, even if that person had wronged him, but he'd still stand up and fight for them. One such incident was recalled by the Secretary General of the South African Council of Churches, Reverend Mpumlwana, recalling an incident that had happened back in Maputo, in the apartheid area. We understand that there was a meeting of some sort that was happening there, but there was an informer, like a spy, within that meeting who tried to take out a gun. While he was disarmed quite quickly, it was the Archbishop that stood near that informer, saying that he will not be killed while he's there. It won't happen in his presence. Eventually, that informer was killed, but it's that fighting for injustices that the Archbishop stood for, which was evident there. Many stories were shared here at the St. Albans Cathedral, and I just want to touch base now with a number of people that are still around here, starting with Bishop Mogotu. Thank you for joining us at eNCA, Bishop, but you heard some of the stories here. I want your recollection of when you first met the Archbishop and that encounter.
Thank you very much. I come from the generations that we call in South Africa of the 80s as a young person. In those years, we had what we call the Interchurch Youth, IYY, which was a youth movement of churches of different denominations that were under the umbrella of the South African Council of Churches. And it was at the time when the Arch was the GS, and we used to go to Khotso House. And subsequently, during school vacs, we used to work there. We used to serve as what was called, during the SACC conference, will be stewards who went around helping in the facilities. That gave us the opportunity to interact and meet with great leaders of our church, the Arch himself included. And you may be aware that after he was elected, the Bishop of the Anglican Church in Johannesburg, he went just around the corner from Khotso House. Khotso House at that time, that one that was bombed at 42 De Villiers Street, and the cathedral was just around the corner in Wanderers. So we had the opportunity to interact with him as a leader, and many other leaders of the ecumenical movement, whether you talk Beyers Nodier, whether you talk Dr. Wolfram Kistner, whether you talk the late Reverend Afrikander, and many of our leaders, including lay leaders like Tom Mantata, Jose Remani, your N. Ratebe, Tembi Mutluatse, Sophie Mazibuko, who were able to sit at their feet and be nurtured.
Quite experience that you got there. I want to move on to Reverend Molo, just to get an understanding of the lessons, Reverend, thank you for joining us at eNCA, that you will learn from the late Archbishop, and some of them that you've learned over the years.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the lessons are immense, and there are many. One of the lasting impressions I have of him is when I was young, and I come from a place called Oudtshoorn in the Southern Cape, and he and Ellen Busak would frequent our area for many campaigns. And one of the most obvious things that stand out around him is that popularity was not his pursuit. He never sought to be popular, and by that I mean that he would say things that even we are not ready to hear, that he would say to us because he thinks that they need to be heard. As a young person who lived in the times of the Tuduza in 85, and Tuduza famous statement where he said that because of what was happening and the possibility of necklacing that will take place, that he can't find himself to reconcile that to the country he wants to have, and therefore there's a temptation for him to leave us. As young people, we were so fair and a little bit angry with that statement because we didn't understand the depth and the clarity of his moral vision. And therefore, although he knew that he might not be popular amongst ourselves, he would say what needed to be said, whether we agree with him at the moment or later on we will discover that actually what he was saying needed to be said to us. The blindness of our passion and anger didn't eat up his soul. When we were passionate and angry as young people, wanting to do stuff that is going to tell the white people that we've got the power to destroy in order for us to be free, he became that voice that allowed us to remind ourselves again and again that our fight is not only a political fight, it is a moral fight, a fight that seeks to find that which is more beautiful than the one that is being destroyed. And for me, those are the endearing teachings that we have from him.
Thank you very much, Reverend Molo. And on that moral tip, that moral fight that you talk about, there was a story that was shared, yes, Sally, just around when he became the Archbishop of Cape Town. You remember when he became the Archbishop of Johannesburg, he refused the mission house in the Lani areas where it was basically white areas to stay in his Vilakazi home. But when he became then the Archbishop of Cape Town, he went and then stayed in that white area. But his defiance then came in terms of who he allowed in the house. We heard that he called children from the townships to go and swim at that white-only area, something that was quite humorous here as the life was celebrated of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu.